One of Bombardier's biggest rivals, Airbus, says the Montreal company's troubled C-Series planes are orphans. This comes after Bombardier had approached its European rival last fall with an offer to partner with it, which ultimately went nowhere. Chief Operating Officer for Customers, John Leahy, said that with only 2 versions of the C-Series jets on the market, it's a one-off. It's not a real family. With Boeing or Airbus, you get different variants. You get the Airbus 318, 319, 320, 321, and you get a product support network around the world. Now, it's no secret Bombardier has been struggling with delays, slow sales, and ballooning costs with its latest aircraft. Bombardier hasn't sold a C-Series plane in more than 18 months. The company had hoped to sell 300 by now, but has just 243 firm offers so far. The planes are now 2 years late, and Bombardier has seen production costs rise by $2 billion. Last fall, the Quebec government, along with the province's pension fund, kicked in $2.5 billion to help Bombardier through the plane's turbulent launch. Now, the company is asking the federal government for $1 billion. Time for the big picture. Bill Robson is president and CEO of the C.D. Howe Institute. Goldie Hyder is president and CEO of Hill and Knowlton Strategies. And Armin Yalnizyan is senior economist at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Okay. You guys have promised me you're going to go easy on me through this. Armin, let's start with you. Bombardier made a business decision. It set itself out to do this jet. It has been troubled since the beginning. Should taxpayers be bailing this thing out?
I hate this story.
I know, you said that.
I totally hate this story because my emotional side says I hate the idea that taxpayers would be helping them pay to play, knowing that this is the new normal in the aerospace industry and in many industries, big businesses. Bombardier is the 3rd biggest commercial airplane manufacturer in the world. So it's an anchor for a huge aerospace business. $29 billion, 180,000 jobs. This is a big issue. So it's when my rational side kicks in and says, why would we treat this any less seriously than the auto industry, especially as the economy is faltering, especially since Pratt & Whitney is about to give us back over $1 billion US in a loan. Why not just flip that around and with conditions give it to Bombardier and watch that sucker take off, because it will.
But that's the question. And Goldie, I'm going to come to you because you're the outlier here. You're not with us today. Will it take off? I mean, have they made the right bet? And if so, is this a worthy, just straight up and down investment?
Well, look, what's relevant is I'm not with you today because I'm in Alberta, and this is a connected point. And that is that if you do it for Bombardier, there's going to be a Me Too syndrome here. I mean, I'm in a province that's had an unbelievable experience over the last few months here, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better. So what are you going to do when others line up at the same time? And all of this, by the way, is well beyond what they had planned in their budget forecast in terms of how much deficit they're going to go into. So while I am one who feels that it's great to have Bombardier in Canada, Bombardier has benefited from being in Canada, and we've benefited from having Bombardier in Canada. We're not a country in which we interfere or intervene in business plans or products that go awry. That is not the business of the Canadian government. And so I'm not for helping a company out at a time in which it's quite clear that the issue here is their product. It's got nothing to do with the things that you would normally help out with, because corporate welfare should be under exceptional circumstances. And that was, the GM comes to mind as one of the more recent examples where it made sense.
Okay, Bill.
Well, my heart and my head are in conflict on this too. Armin and I, talking earlier, agreed that we both dislike the topic. In my case, my heart's kind of with the airplane. I mean, it is a good airplane, and I'd love to see it succeed. But the competition is ferocious, and one of the real important downsides about the delay here, it's a big project. It would have been hard even for Boeing or Airbus to pull this type of thing off. The competition is caught up, and one of the concerns that I would have is, however good it might have been a few years ago, I don't see this plane with that great a chance of succeeding. And the question of putting public money into it is really, like, Goldie raises the fiscal precedent. That's really important. I think we should come back to that. But let me also say, this is how you get zombies in an economy. When you look at the countries in the world that have businesses that are just kind of lumbering along, very low productivity, and in the end shedding a lot of jobs, one of the things you often see is that governments have decided to prop them up, and I don't like to see us doing that.
But I don't know a lot of people out there today saying the C-Series jet, if it can get to market and if it can sort of, it's now certified, it's sort of clipping away at the things holding it back. I don't know a lot of people saying that thing's going to be a dud. No one's going to buy it.
Right.
Peter, as one of the panelists who likes the topic, let me just say that there are things that government can do. There are things that government can do that doesn't require it to reach into the public purse. And let me give you some examples. There are markets such as Iran and Russia where we have imposed sanctions that are stricter than our allies. Perhaps in this new Sunny Ways government, they can sit down and say, let's look at the opportunities for creating markets like that. I understand Iran would be ready to buy all kinds of planes from Bombardier. Maybe that is something that they need to do. Maybe they need to look at the foreign investment rules that allows for more money to be invested into Canada so that we can have a more innovative economy. We can drive our R&D. These are things government should be doing. It should not be subsidizing business plans, as I said, that didn't work out.
Well, in fact, this is just a question of timing, because that's exactly what Bombardier said today it was going to do. It's going to focus on the Middle East, including Iran. It's going to focus on Africa. These are emerging markets. This narrow-bodied plane is the best in class. It's the quietest, it's the lightest, it's the most fuel efficient. And though oil prices are low today, we're also talking about carbon emissions. This is the future, and they've got a 20-year plan. When people say this is a dud, you have to go back and remember what Boeing was doing with 747. When it was first introduced, they were 3 years late. They were $5 billion over, and in 20 years, or less than 20 years, they proved that this was a best-in-class vehicle. This is what we're looking at right now.
Peter, I want to let you get your question, but there's something I have to say.
You guys said you'd go easy on this.
Well, here we are saying we hate the topic and we all want to talk. One quick thing about markets. So was the first thing that the new federal government did almost, tweeted that they wouldn't allow the Toronto Island Airport expansion.
That was the question I was going to ask.
There is a domestic market for this plane. And so if that was the question you were going to ask, let me just say something very quick about we want to grow the economy, right? And yet every time we come up against something like that, what's the most important thing that a hub like Toronto needs for human capital and all the good things we do? Good transportation and out near the city centre, kibosh that, and at the same time, one of the key markets for this airplane isn't going to be there anymore. And if I'm a foreign buyer, one of the first things I'm going to say is, are you making any domestic sales? And if we don't make any domestic sales, that's a real cinder blocker.
Do you count United Airlines as a domestic sale? Because they're poised to buy 50 of them within a few weeks.
Sure. Goldie, I want you to jump in on this. If the Liberals, do you think they're kicking themselves now for having said no to the Island Airport expansion? Because it would have effectively been a subsidy of Bombardier without actually needing to put in any money. And in fiscal times, they're probably pretty squeezed in terms of being able to find any cash now.
Well, look, I think it's quite clear that the government is having to move from the campaign mode into the governing mode and realizing just what a shift that is and how hard that is to do. And if I can give a plug out to our friend Jeffrey Simpson in the Globe and Mail, his piece today on not just slow growth but followed by no growth is an absolute must-read for any Canadian who cares about the future of our country, because it speaks to these issues. And these are things that are coming right at Prime Minister Trudeau. Timing is everything in this business. He may be thinking, wow, I wonder if I really wanted to win this time. Because, boy, if you do this Bombardier deal, I'm sitting in a province in here in which, as I said, a history of Western alienation. And believe me, it would not take much to spark all kinds of discussions and debates and constitutional debates, if you will, in Canada, if there was a sense that there was some favoritism being given to one province over another. So it is a very slippery slope. Welcome to being Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau.
Armin's staring you down through the monitor. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm really glad that we're talking about sloth again, which is a term that I have coined on this show before. And sloth is one of these things that is going to be with us for 15, 20 years because of a combination of bad economics right now and demographics. And this 20-year plan that Bombardier has fits nicely, tightly into the concerns we've got on climate change, on replacing fleets, on getting smaller vehicles out there and moving people more efficiently. It is about efficiency, and I'm actually very bullish on the company's prospects. But the one thing I would say is this dual-class share structure that, it is one of these weirdo things that the Baudouin company will not give up control in return for cash. And I think that's got to be something that the federal government just puts its foot down on.
Well, since I said I wanted to get that out there and Armin beat me to it, let me just elaborate a little bit. I don't have a very strong sort of principled stand that you should have one or another type of voting arrangement with your shares. But in this particular situation, it's very clear that people don't want the subordinated voting shares as much as they would be willing to pay if they had proper voting rights. So I would say ahead of any public money going in, there's an opportunity to raise more public money just by changing that, and they should do that before we even continue the conversation.
Right on.
Well, for you guys who didn't like this subject very much, I think we did pretty well. Goldie, thanks a lot. Bill Army.
We're always enthusiastic when we don't like the topic.
You see? There we go.